All right, and good morning. One more day of it being the Cam Solo show, and then Chris will return from the beach just in time for Firearms Friday, which we might take mobile or we might just do it here. I don't know. He has ideas, this man, Chris, huh? Anyhow, so good morning to, let's see, Patricia, Steve, EM. Not real sure who you are, but I'm glad you're here. And Jamie, and let's see, Chris is here in the audience, and I happen to agree, this is in fact a great looking shirt designed by Chris, so that we look super spiffy when we do East Atlanta video work. And honestly, sometimes there's like other photographers or whatever that I'll work with. I'll still wear this shirt because it's got like all the pockets for batteries and lens caps and all that. It's just perfect. And good morning to Krista and Megan. And yeah. Okay, so what are we doing this morning? Well, it's not a total win, but the total win was inspired by making fun of Kim Jong Un, so I figured we could sort of tie it all back together. Hey y'all, Kim Jong Un got skinny-ish, and it's kind of weird because nobody saw him for months, and then when you did see him again, he looked mostly like Kim Jong Un, except he was skinny. And we're talking about a country where being fat is a status symbol because there's just not a lot of food. We're talking about a country that tolerates open drug use because if you're high, you're less likely to bitch about not having food. So, dear leader, getting skinny is it's interesting. And apparently he doesn't have like a lot of self-discipline or self-control. He'll just guzzle entire bottles of scotch at dinner, which on occasion I have no problem doing myself, mind you. But he does it habitually. So the fact that he's skinny is interesting. And I really tried to think about some good puns about how he lost weight by firing missiles, and I just couldn't get there. So I figured I'd just talk about the fact that he was skinny, talk about the fact that he disappeared from public view for months. And now he's back in the public eye, and he's not dealing with Donald Trump anymore, that's for sure. So, let's get right into this. This comes from The World, which, yes, yes it does. North and South Korea each tested ballistic missiles on Wednesday, just hours apart, in a display that is sure to exacerbate tensions on the peninsula at a time when talks aimed at stripping the North of its nuclear program are stalled. South Korea's presidential office said that the country conducted its first submarine-launched ballistic missile test. It said the domestically built missile flew from a submarine and hit its designated target while President Moon Jae-in and other top officials looked on. Moon said improvements in the country's missile capabilities would serve as a deterrence against North Korean provocation. Yeah, I'm sure it will, guys. Earlier Wednesday, North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the sea. Those launches come 2 days after the North said it fired a newly developed cruise missile, its first weapon test in 6 months. Its first weapons test in 6 months. I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with, I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with who currently occupies the White House and keeps Depends in stock. Oh, look at that. Experts say North Korea is building up its weapons systems to apply pressure on the United States in the hopes of winning relief from sanctions aimed at forcing the North to abandon its nuclear arsenal. U.S.-led talks on the issue have been stalled for more than 2 years, and in the meantime, tensions have been rising on the Korean peninsula. So, I'll just go ahead and say it. This would be completely different if Donald Trump were still president. Strategically speaking, what North Korea did here makes a lot of sense. They They played both sides, got as much goodwill from Donald Trump as they could. But then the election year rolled around. There was COVID. The North could afford to withdraw, basically, and just wait things out. Like, there's this whole like pandemic thing, and then there's this election thing. I might not have Donald Trump to contend with in just a few short months. Now, if Donald Trump had won re-election, I strongly believe that the North would have come back around to the table. Because according to the traitor, Milley, Donald Trump totes has no problem bombing the shit out of things and even threatening to use nuclear weapons on targets. So, Rocket Man would have been just a smidge afraid of Donnie Two Scoops. But no, instead we've got the dependable in chief, the depends in chief, I'm word whiskering that pun. It's got to be there though. It's close. We're getting there. But we all know that I'm talking about the 80-year-old guy that has a age appropriate onset dementia, not early onset, age appropriate. That's who occupies the White House. And I mean, it even says right here that these are U.S.-led talks. And yes, they are. For a time, we were in a really good position where the North and the South were negotiating with one another directly. They even marched under a unified flag at the most recent Olympics, which is excellent, which is actually what we want. If that region of the world can voluntarily de-escalate the situation, good. But the North is still run by crazy people. And, there's the whole China thing and the fact that North Korea is not even really North Korea. North Korea is like what Cuba was to the USSR. It's a satellite state, and it's effectively a buffer colony, really. If we were try and use South Korea as a launch point for an invasion, we'd have to go through North Korea, a bunch of hostile resistance, a bunch of hungry hostile resistance, but hostile resistance, and then there's all the mountains and everything else. It's in China's best interest to continue to prop it up. And I see Chris is in the comments, and I don't read or speak Korean, so I'm going to assume that that's an absolutely hysterical joke. Krista says maybe it's a stunt double. That's possible. Crazy dictators are crazy, and doing stunt doubles is just, it's part of their toe jam and its weirdness. Count Dankula has one of his Mad Lad episodes on Uday Hussein, and what Uday's stunt double went through in and of itself is fascinating. Okay, let's continue. I love this line. Experts say that North Korea is building up its weapon systems to apply pressure on the United States. That in and of itself, look, for better or worse, we are the most powerful country. Bye-bye, Chris. Enjoy the beach. Our checkbook is the biggest. Our credit card is the biggest, and our guns are the biggest. And the fact that our military is all voluntary and that there's a culture of love and respect and I'm gonna say almost like a blind servitude toward it, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. I'm just saying when you buy into military life in this country, you buy all the way in. Means our Joes, our boys are committed. Okay, you don't want to fight American soldiers with American guns backed up by American checkbooks. And Krista points out that the commander-in-chief is weak AF, which he is. But I'm just pointing out that in a properly functioning world, to say that North Korea is applying pressure to us is... I mean, I guess it's technically true, but that's insanity. That's... yeah, it's like saying that the elephant really is afraid of the mouse. Okay. North Korea is trying to communicate a message that things will not go as Washington wishes if it doesn't accept the North's demands, said Moon Seong-mook, an analyst with the Seoul-based Korea Research Institute for National Strategy. He said North Korea may think it has an opportunity to win concessions from U.S. President Joe Biden's administration while it is embroiled in a domestic debate following the chaotic pullout from Afghanistan. Meanwhile, observers say Moon's government, which has actively been pursuing reconciliation with North Korea, may have taken action to appear tougher in response to criticism that it's too soft on the North. The rival nations are still technically in a state of war since the 1950 to 1953 Korean War, which pitted the North and allied China against the South, and U.S.-led UN forces ended in an armistice, not a peace treaty. Yeah. Just by the by, technically, that whole Korean War thing is still going on. What we have is effectively is a gentleman's agreement to not shoot at each other, but we're totally still at war. It's an interesting little situation there. And it's funny that they mentioned the Afghanistan pullout. Given just the absolute abysmal failure of everything having to do with that situation, and how guys like Crowder were able to accurately predict the excuses that would come from the administration when Americans and allies got left behind. Because let's be real clear about what's going on in Afghanistan. They're using our helicopters to hang people from them, as in like hang you by your neck until you are dead, hang people from them. And not only did we leave the helicopters and shit like that there, turns out we're not real sure exactly how many Americans and allies are still in the country, but it's kind of in the thousands. So, you know, whatever. You can totally trust the United States. We've got your back. Put your life on the line. Put your family's lives on the line. Hey, take big risks in a region of the world where they're not afraid to do a female circumcision. And don't Google that, by the way. Just accept that it's an awful practice. But they're not afraid to do things like female circumcisions and not let women drive and cut the noses off girls for daring to go to school. But it's cool. We got your back. Except, no, we don't. It turns out that we might just leave your ass in that country and say, screw you. We might also force you to do things like hike hundreds of miles to a border so a private group can pull you out at great risk to themselves. I mean, there is reason for North Korea to believe that they have some advantages here, because we do have Jose the comments through me. Good job, guys. Good job. See, Steve's right. Oh, the joys of globalism, eh? Speaking of North Korea, segueing into Afghanistan, and it's smooth as silk. Shaking my damn head. But that's kind of the thing. They do segue into each other. Afghanistan, objectively speaking, is a small, weak country. If we really wanted to project our force and power on Afghanistan, I'd say that we bomb the country back to the Stone Age, but we might actually bomb them forward into the Stone Age if we did that. And it would be ditto for North Korea. It's just North Korea has that pesky little China problem. But in any event, either country, like seriously, it would take about 4 hours if we really put some try-hard into it, and we'd bring them to their knees. However, for some time, the problem in Afghanistan in particular, and it's something that that Chris talked about, one of his biggest frustrations being, is that, you know, the bad guys in Afghanistan, they knew how to play the game. They knew that if they hid in a grove of fruit trees, for example, which are protected, and took pot shots at U.S. soldiers, you know, you'd think, okay, there's sniper fire coming from those hills over there. Hey, let's just blanket those hills with mortar fire until there's literally nothing left. makes sense to me, makes sense to you, makes sense to just about everybody, unless they go and they hide in the fruit trees, right? And then they hide in the fruit trees, and you can't blanket the fruit trees with mortar fire, and we've just got to allow these guys to continue taking pot shots at us. This has hamstrung us from the very beginning, ever since we got involved in the Middle East. And one of the things I've been saying personally for the entire length of time we've been involved in the Middle East is, if we're going to go to war, we need to actually go to war. Like, it is what it is. If we're going to half-ass it, there's no point. Believe it or not, the most humane thing you can do in any military engagement is to hurry up and win. That's the only way to reduce casualties. It's the only way to reduce collateral damage. It's the only way to what I'm trying to say is, if you hurry up and get it over, there's fewer opportunities for people to die and for buildings to fall down. Steve says, also, are we tracking on Bush referring to patriots as American Taliban? Yes. We're tracking on that. And Steve also points out that they weren't afraid to salt the soil. I don't think that's necessary, but I think that mentality is necessary. A few Moabs would go a long way, I would think. And then there's all the other missiles that we have. And then the aforementioned American soldier who loves being an American soldier, hopes he gets to kill bad guys on behalf of America. I mean, if we wanted to really project our power into that region of the world, we could. We just don't. And so I say all that to say, at least we had a leader with balls for a few years. At least we had a leader with strength. A leader that understood that there's actual give and take to negotiation. I've worked in commission sales before, and I've been through a lot of sales training, and what's really, really funny, and this is something that people just don't understand, people will say, oh, I hate being sold to. I hate the car salesman attitude. I hate the insurance salesman attitude. I hate the electronic salesman attitude. No, you don't. And I know for a fact that you don't. Because those very people that say they hate that attitude, they hate to be sold to, are the very people that are sold to. There's a bizarre thing that happens. Like, you walk onto a car lot because you want to buy a car. That's the only reason you're there. You might not want to pay for a car, but you do in fact want to own a new car. It's the only reason you walk onto the car lot. And a good salesperson understands that there is an internal push-pull dynamic in you, and their job is to help get you over the hurdle and actually put you in a car that you're satisfied with, that you can, at least on paper, afford. Well, Donald Trump scaled this up and treated foreign policy this way. And what I'm saying is, there's at least some part of Kim Jong Un that understands that the U.S. would be a good friend to have. Now, there's some real push-pull there, because he also likes, running a country and having a harem and having unlimited booze. And let's be honest, I wouldn't necessarily think that was a terrible thing to, have your own army, and that would be pretty cool. A tough thing to give up, I understand. But he also understands that North Korea is basically a failed state, and has been since its inception. If it wasn't being propped up by food aid and by China and all this other stuff, they would have already failed. And they've taken all the money that we've given them over the years, and they've spent that on nuclear programs, right? The fact that they have nuclear bombs, that they've forced their way onto the stage with the big boys. Look, just because you give a monkey a loaded gun doesn't mean that the monkey is anything less than a monkey. However, that doesn't mean that the loaded gun is any less loaded. And it's sort of where North Korea is. They're a monkey with a loaded gun. But they're still led by very human people. And even just with the bizarre insanity that is the culture of North Korea, there are people that understand that negotiating with the U.S. is a net positive. That there will probably be some things that they have to give up. But there's examples all over the world, like, say, Afghanistan, where the U.S. will basically give you the entire store for free, and then we'll even leave our Apaches behind and let you scuttle them. It'll be great. Yeah, so I'm going to say all that to say the reason why North Korea feels like they can apply pressure, even though that's a ridiculous concept in this context, is because of the weakness of our leader, the fact that the previous leader understood how to play the game. It's sort of like if you have the most chips at a poker table, you've got a big advantage. You can push other people out of hands just because they simply cannot afford to keep raising the bet with you. And Donald Trump really understood this. Frankly, I think Joe Biden in his younger years understood this, and I think that there are people that work with and for Joe Biden that understand this. They're adopting this position of weakness on purpose. You saw Obama do this. Obama would be very, very recalcitrant and oh no, the U.S. is the bad guys. We understand. We're a player in the world and all that other nonsense. And the thought that somehow that was going to make us more agreeable, more tolerable. I don't know. I have a hard time putting myself in the position of the leftist mind frame. I just see a big rich country like us that basically strokes the entire fucking world a check. And oh yeah, every time shit gets really bad, and every time shit gets really bad, it's American boots that go on the ground to stop it. Just saying. And when Americans don't get involved, that's when you've got like the genocides that happen, right? Just is what it is. Let's see. Got about 10 minutes. I think we can get through this and wrap up with a little analysis. Let's do. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said the launches threaten the peace and safety of Japan and the region and are absolutely outrageous. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said the move highlights the destabilizing impact of North Korea's illicit weapons program, though it said it didn't pose an immediate threat to the U.S. The South Korean test will likely infuriate the North, which has often accused its rival of hypocrisy for introducing modern weapons while calling for talks between the divided countries. South Korea's military said the North Korean ballistic missiles flew 800 kilometers or 500 miles before landing in the waters between the Korean Peninsula and Japan. The launches represent a violation of UN Security Council's resolutions that bar North Korea from engaging in any ballistic missile activity, but the Council typically doesn't impose new sanctions when the North launches short-range missiles like Wednesdays. Because, oh, Steve, I just happened to glance over. In Joe Biden's younger years, we didn't have fuel-injected cars or touch-tone phones. Hey, look, man. In Joe Biden's younger years, when Moses came down off that mountain, right? You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do that because... Good job, Steve. Steve keeps winning that top comment award. It's amazing. Okay. So, just to kind of touch on it, this is correct. North Korea routinely violates the sanctions that the UN put on them, and then the UN just goes, that wasn't even that bad. It was only like 500 miles. Krista says, I feel like South Korea doesn't have a choice. Maybe they wouldn't bother with it if they didn't feel the threat. Actually, I would really agree with that portion of the analysis. South Korea also doesn't have a choice because just like North Korea has China backing them up, theoretically, South Korea is supposed to have the US of A backing it up. And again, referring to the Afghanistan absolute clusterfuck, do you trust the US to have your back right now? I don't know that I would. I might take advantage of the fact that I had a population of real smart guys and girls, excuse me, let's be inclusive, had a population of people that are all very smart that basically are a small army of math Asians, as it were, and put them to work building bigger and better and scarier bombs, like, immediately, and testing those things in full view of the North, because, well, can't count on us. Yeah, and Steve says South Korea is happy exercising capitalism. They'd be happy if there was no aggressor nearby. Yeah, South Korea is actually a rather aggressively capitalist country. They do engage in some protectionist practices. They're not pure capitalism, but the basics of what Steve just said are correct. All right, so let's... Oh, okay, we can do this. There's just a few minutes left. All right. Wednesday's test came as Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in Seoul for meetings with Moon and other senior officials to discuss North Korea and other issues. It's unusual for North Korea to make provocative launches when China, its last major ally and biggest aid provider, is engaged in a major diplomatic event. But some experts say North Korea may have used the timing to draw extra attention. Duh, you think? Just expert analysis there. Kim Dong-yub, a professor at the University of North Korean Studies in Seoul, said Wednesday's tests appeared to be of an improved version of a short-range missile it tested in March. He said the weapon is likely modeled on Russia's Iskander missile, whose flattened-out low-altitude flight makes it hard to intercept. The international community is bent on getting the North to abandon its nuclear program and has long used a combination of threat of sanctions and a promise of economic help to try to influence the North. But the nuclear talks between the United States and North Korea have stalled since 2019, when then U.S. President Donald Trump's administration rejected the North's demand for major sanctions relief in exchange for dismantling an aging nuclear facility. North Korea leader Kim Jong Un's government has so far rejected the Biden administration's overtures for dialogue, demanding that Washington abandon what it calls hostile policies first. But the North has maintained its self-imposed moratorium on nuclear and long-range missile tests, a sign that it may not want to completely scuttle the possibility of reopening talks. Because they don't. Let's be clear. Go back to the earlier analysis. In 2017, North Korea claimed to have acquired the ability to strike the American mainland with nuclear weapons after conducting 3 intercontinental ballistic missile tests and its most powerful nuclear test. In recent years, it also performed a series of underwater-launched missile tests in what experts say is a worrying development because such weapons are difficult to detect in advance and would provide the North with a second retaliatory strike capability. There's a reason why putting nukes on subs brings things to a whole nother level. South Korea, which doesn't have nuclear weapons, is under the protection of the U.S. nuclear umbrella, which guarantees a devastating American response in the event of an attack on its ally. But South Korea has been accelerating efforts to build up its conventional arms, including developing more powerful missiles. Experts say the South's military advancements are aimed at improving its capacity for preemptive strikes and destroying key northern facilities and bunkers. Separate from the submarine-launched missile, South Korea also tested a missile from an aircraft. All right, so we're coming up on 8 o'clock. And let's see, the current administration's only hostile policies are aimed solely at Americans. Okay, Steve, I'm taking the top comment from you and giving it to Krista because you are correct. That is so true, it's painful. So Krista wins the top comment award. Congratulations. Long story short, this should be Toter Win Thursday, and it's not because we suck in Afghanistan, and it looks like we are about to suck in North Korea. And that's awful. Just absolutely awful. And just to really put a button on it, it's not that there is an ideological difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There is, but that's not what the issue is. It's more like their baseline philosophy. Trump believed America was the good guys, Because usually we are. Like every other country, we have sins and stains. But usually we're the good guys. And Trump believed he could actually make a difference. That he possessed a combination of the power and the ability, backed up by the most powerful country on the planet, to actually make changes. A lot of these globalist types just don't think in those terms. Obama didn't think in those terms. That basically, not only do the globalist, leftist, whatever you want to call them, understand that America is extremely powerful and extremely capable, they don't like it. They find it immoral. It's gauche and uncouth and yuck. Wow. Man, the world would be a better place if America took a shot to the kneecaps, basically. And that sounds insane to you or I, but it's what they think. And they sincerely believe that, basically, it's going to be a painful donut hole, but we just have to get through the donut hole. When we get to the other side and America's a weaker nation and the other countries feel less threatened by us, guys, they'll totally behave better. All you have to do is make the bully feel better, and the bully will stop being a bully. There's never, ever, ever a time when standing up to the bully is the right thing to do. Unless, of course, the bully is us. And that's what they think. They think America is the bully. They think MAGA hat wearers are the bullies. And it is what it is, and it's sad. So I'm going to put the button on it right there. Thank everybody for coming by. It was fun, and the Cam Solo show has been an interesting experiment. And yes, Steve says fuck globalists. All of them. I happen to agree. So y'all have a great day.